Welcome back to the podcast. We've got an action-packed episode for you today, but just before we do get into it, it's in a weird statistic, Dom, actually, that only 20% of people that are currently watching this podcast are actually subscribed. So make sure you do hit the big red button, subscribe to the channel, and whilst you're down there, hit the like button as well. It all really does help. Dom, how are we this morning, mate? How are you?
Yeah, I'm feeling great, Dan. You know, we've got a lot to discuss. A lot of things have happened since the last podcast. And yeah, let's get into it.
As always, should we start with Keir Starmer? You've got a big piece on us with regard to his inner circle scandal. I'm hearing £700,000 being hidden in donations. Can you elaborate a bit more on this for us?
Yeah, so this came from a leak from around 2018 to 2019. Which was essentially the era of Corbyn, who was leading the Labour Party. Now, Corbyn was clearly pro-Palestine, and he won the sort of leader of Labourship in a landslide election. And there was about £700,000 worth of donations that were concealed and weren't reported. So I read the emails between Gerard Shamash sent to Morgan McSweeney. Morgan McSweeney seems to be the focal point of a lot of these different scandals. This guy is a very shady character. And essentially what they did is they had the donation, they didn't declare it, and then they said, okay, we're just going to say this is an admin issue. This was a failure to declare because of an admin issue. It shows really how authorities have been misled over hundreds of thousands of pounds of donations used to install Starmer as Labour leader. Now, this is the key point here. So I really got looking into who was donating this money. And I uncovered some pretty interesting stuff. Now, the person who donated this money is a man called Trevor Chin. Now, Chin is a prominent British-Israeli businessman, and he inherited a lot of his wealth from his father, Rossa Chin. Now, Rossa Chin was the head of the Jewish National Fund president, and he was instrumental in aiding land disposition from Palestinians during the Israeli settlement. Now, Trevor Chin, is really an archetype of like elite foreign line meddling. He's a key player in sort of eroding British sovereignty when it comes to foreign policy. And he really is a sort of key player in corrupting Westminster with this like globalist cash. And he props up a lot of the main political figures in the current government. It's a bit of a puppet master, turning sort of UK policy into an extension of Tel Aviv's agenda. Now, Chin has donated millions to both political parties, both Labour Friends of Israel, which is LFI, and Conservative Friends of Israel, which is CFI. So he's donated millions to both of these causes, ensuring basically bipartisan support. So key players who are currently funded by him are people like David Lammy, Yvette Cooper, and of course, Keir Starmer. Now, Starmer's cabinet currently, 13 out of the 25 are on Chin's payroll, which really shows the sort of scope and scale of his lobbying. So it was around the same time that Starmer rose to power within Labour, was the same time that this donation was given to the Labour Party. Now, the reason I think they didn't donate it is because he donated this money in order to defeat Corbynism. We know Corbynism was pro-Palestine, and we know Keir Starmer changed his tune very quickly after the donations. So until 2019, he had been a member of Labour Friends of Palestine and the Middle East and promised to put, I quote, human rights at the heart of foreign policy. Yet a few weeks after this donation, he publicly changed his tune and stated, "I support Zionism without qualification." Now, Chin withheld funds from Labour under Corbyn. So that's from 2015 to 2020. Who obviously advocated for Palestinian rights. He also fueled anti-Semitism smear campaign against Corbyn. Do you remember that smear campaign where he was basically put as an anti-Semite? Well, that was completely funded by Trevor Quinn. sorry. And he also tanked a left-wing media called The Canary via advertising boycotts. Now, Chin really ensures bipartisan Israel support. He kind of hijacks this via rewards. He uses donations and trips. And also on the flip side, he uses punishments such as like funding cuts and public smear campaigns. Now, my question to you, Dan, is that given Trevor Chin has bankrolled both Labour and Tory leadership to sort of prioritise Israel over British interests, like what steps can we take to ensure that right now foreign lobbyists are stopped from sort of hijacking British democracy? Do we need publicity over dual nationality? Is that something that we should sort of take a step towards?
Yeah, I think so. Is this, so just, I'm reading the article here. So is this the full £739,492 that was, that's being talked about here is from that individual?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. So it's from Israel itself, or someone who's from Israel.
Trevor Chin is both British and Israeli, but he's really been a key.
Oh, Jonah.
Yeah,
I get it.
Yeah, he's been a key sort of political lobbyist for the Israeli agenda, really since the 1980s.
Oh, okay. So he's got a bit of a mixed. So he's got a double interest sort of thing.
Yeah, he's got dual loyalties.
Right, I see. Yeah, I mean, that should not be the case. And we've been speaking about that with regard to a few other people within Parliament, where it was sort of Labour MPs campaigning for a new airport in Pakistan and all these kind of things. It takes away from British interests first. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's correct.
I think that should be the case.
And really, this is the sort of the weeds that are behind this establishment. All these politicians are being corrupted by money, and everybody has a price. Now, Keir Starmer's price is over £730,000. So if you want to buy Keir Starmer's opinions, then you know the price tag.
Yeah. So with this now, then, of course, the Tories. You're saying that there was this individual was donating to both parties. However, what they're saying now is the Tories are coming out with regard to this in particular story about them, of course, this 739,000 donation. And the Conservative Party chairman, Kevin Hollenrake, said the evidence clear Morgan McSweeney has been caught red-handed, hiding hundreds of thousands of pounds, which helped install Keir Starmer as Labour leader. This latest scandal at the very heart of the government is incredibly serious and potentially criminal. Yet Keir Starmer has just expressed his full confidence in his chief of staff, once again demonstrating his poor judgment and raising serious questions. Nothing to see here. Keir may think he can ride this one out as he is tied to over the Mandelson-Epstein scandal, or perhaps he is too weak to fire a chief of staff who tells him what to think, but Conservatives will not stop fighting until we get the truth. This is why we are calling on the Electoral Commission and the police to urgently investigate.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty incriminating because it is sort of a done deal that they did break the law. They also said the Electoral Commission found that Labour together broke the law by failing to report the £739,491 of political donations. The Commission fined Labour together £14,250 for failure to deliver the donations, reports within 30 days of accepting donations, and B, to inaccurate reporting of donations, and C, failure to appoint responsible persons within 30 days of accepting donations. So they didn't have someone who was thorough in reporting the donations. But this, I think, is a bit of a sham. I clearly know they had the donations. I think Morgan McSweeney, again, is at the heart of this scandal. And
he's a slimy character, isn't he?
He is, and as I've said in the last podcast, his father is making £6 million a year from migrant hotels in Ireland. So we know where this guy's loyalty lies. It's definitely not sort of the nation that he resides in. Obviously, his father taking massive amounts of money to house unvetted migrants in Ireland shows really a lack of loyalty to the nation that he resides in.
Now, of course, the scandal is blowing up this morning, and of course, we've heard from the Tories. But the Deputy Prime Minister, and it still sounds super weird calling him that, David Lammy, has came out with regard to it and said, in opposition, 14 years in opposition, Labour Together was one of a group organisations designed to get the Labour Party in the groove with the British people in position to win once more, and Labour Together was integral in achieving. I'm not surprised that the Tories are muckraking. I'm not surprised that they're attempting to destabilise an organisation that played that role, but I really don't believe that there's anything to see here. And certainly my contact with Labour Together was really about policy, and that would set us to win a general election, as we went on to do. So yeah, he's kind of came out and said that there's nothing to see here, David Lammy. But we've seen this over the last 2 weeks now. Two separate incidents. Of course, Angela Rayner, and we've seen the Labour's defence of her straight away, but a day later, 2 days later, she was dismissed. And then we've seen the same thing with, of course, Mandelson and the Epstein scandal. 2 days prior, Keir Starmer came out and defended him and said that this is, he's the top man for the job and all these kind of things. He's not going to be sacked. And then 2 days later, he was dismissed from his position. So could we see something happen here? But my thing is, I don't think we will, because this is the guy that is controlling and telling Keir Starmer exactly what to do and say.
Exactly. This guy is like the ear of Keir Starmer. He really does sort of push Starmer in his directions when it comes to policy, foreign policy, and also national policy as well. Yeah, it'd be a big one to fire. Keir Starmer's right-hand man is obviously holds a lot of power within the current government. But really, it's the evidence is clear as day. This man broke the law, and really there needs to be massive public outcry if he does not lose his position in power. We cannot trust these people when they are clear as day breaking the law in terms of the Electoral Commission.
Yeah, it's definitely something. We'll have to wait and see what happens and what comes of it, though, in due course. I just want to move on to the UN speech yesterday, of course, with Donald Trump. I'm sure you've seen it, did you?
Yes, I've definitely seen clips of it.
And of course, this is amazing. It's just like, it just made me laugh so much that Sadiq Khan again getting yet another mention on the global stage in front of everybody who is everybody at the UN Assembly. And of course, he spoke about a lot of different things, Donald Trump, but of course couldn't help but mention the state of London, Sadiq Khan being sort of complicit, but also sending a stark warning to Europe with regard to immigration. Now, I just want to get it up here. It's under Trump London. Have a little watch of what Donald Trump had to say yesterday.
And I have to say, I look at London, where you have a terrible mayor, terrible mayor, and it's been so changed. Now they want to go to Sharia law, but you're in a different country. You can't do that. Both the immigration and their suicidal energy ideas will be the death of Western Europe if something is not done immediately. This cannot be sustained. What makes the world so beautiful is that each country is unique. But to stay this way, every sovereign nation must have the right to control their own borders. You have the right to control your borders, as we do now, and to limit the sheer numbers of migrants entering their countries and paid for by the people of that nation that were there and that built that particular nation at the time. They put their blood, sweat, tears, money into that country, and now they're being ruined. Proud nations must be allowed to protect their communities and prevent their societies from being overwhelmed by people they have never seen before, with different customs, religions, with different everything. Where migrants have violated laws, lodged false asylum claims, or claimed refugee status for illegitimate reasons, they should, in many cases, be immediately sent home. And while we will always have a big heart for places and people that are struggling and truly compassionate, answers will be given. We have to solve the problem, and we have to solve it in their countries, not create new problems in our countries. And we are very helpful to a lot of countries that are just not able to send their people anymore. They used to send them to us in caravans of 25,000, 30,000 people each. These massive caravans of people pouring into our country, totally unchecked and unvetted. But not anymore. According to the Council of Europe in 2024, almost 50% of inmates in German prisons were foreign nationals or migrants. In Austria, the number was 53% of the people in prisons were from places that weren't from where they are now. In Greece, the
Yeah, what did you make of Trump going in on Sadiq Khan again, and also talking about the state of Europe's immigration problem? He's coming out a lot talking about the state of Europe and telling them to get a grip, of course, of their borders. What do you make? I just want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so this guy's clearly got a vendetta against Sadiq Khan, and rightfully so. You know, London is recognisable. I just spent a week there, and you know the demographic there, the crime, it is like no other time. But he also said a lot of interesting things there about the fake asylum claims that is sort of plaguing foreign policy right now and the border protection. He's absolutely spot on. You know, we've done deep dives into that. We've done deep dives into how every single immigrant breaks Article 6 of the European Convention of Human Rights. Essentially because they're coming from a safe country, they should have already claimed asylum there. And many of these people have to travel through, 8+ countries in order to get to the United Kingdom. So he's absolutely spot on there. You know, this is a massive racketeering scheme. It's a fraud that is plaguing our country. This fraud is held up by the judicial system in accepting these claims of asylum when they are clearly fraudulent. And, we need people like Trump calling this out, because this not only affects the UK, but the whole of Europe itself. And he's right, if this carries on, Europe will become unrecognisable. These people's ancestors did not put any blood, sweat and tears, as Donald Trump says, into the country. And therefore, their right to come here and live is null and void. And many of these people do not travel from war-torn countries. They make fake asylum claims. They say fake political persecution. They claim they're gay, or they are, inflicting some sort of persecution from their government. And it's just completely bogus. They know what to say. They know what to do. They are advised by these NGO human rights lawyers in order to make sure these claims go through and the claims are accepted, and it shall no longer go forward. This is something we need to hit on the head as soon as possible, because the problem's getting so big that it requires a pretty legitimate response to it, a massive response. And the bigger the problem is, the bigger response has to be. So really, time is of the essence here. We need to be sort of sorting out this issue. And also, we need to stop these sort of woke activist lawyers from helping these people. They need to help British people and British interests first. And this is the issue with these claims, is that we can't inherit the whole world. We can't solve the whole world's problems. We are a small country of sort of 70 million people, and we're also incredibly small geographically. We do not have the space nor resources in the public sector to help these people. We need to put British interests first. And this is what Trump's really getting at, is that it's Europe for Europeans, it's Britain for British, and obviously he's pushing America for Americans. But yeah, what do you make of the Sadiq Khan comments?
Oh, I love them. I mean, I think I've always said it. I think there's a lot of arseholes in the British politics space, but certainly I do think who takes the top throne is Sadiq Khan. I think he is probably the worst in British politics. At all, I can't believe that he's in 3 terms as the London mayor, and as you see, we're going to get some footage of the city a little bit later on. I've got a bit of a surprise for you guys a little bit later on, so do stick by. You'll see the place has completely fallen. It really has. And Sadiq Khan, a little bit of breaking news for you as we're recording this podcast, has now responded to Donald Trump's comments from yesterday, branding him as the classic, the victimhood. Sadiq Khan has branded him racist, sexist, misogynistic, and Islamophobic after his UN attack. He told broadcasters, the public will be wondering what is about this Muslim mayor who leads a liberal, multicultural, progressive, successful city reality, that means I appear to be living rent-free in Donald Trump's head. When people say things, when people act in a certain way, when people behave in a certain way, you've got to believe them. I look at, that's after his comments there, but of course branding him and calling him racist, sexist, misogynistic and Islamophobic. What do you make of his response back?
Well, they're just like the clear sort of, identity politic labels that everyone uses on the left in order to use a sort of strawman fallacy argument to delegitimize Trump's comments. At the end of the day, he's not even listening to what he's saying, nor is he looking at the statistics of London and how the sort of crimes got so bad, the demographic has changed so much, and that's really what Trump's talking about. Yet, Sadiq Khan is just using these woke labels, racist, sexist, Islamophobic, and misogynistic.
The buzzwords. Exactly.
He's just using the standardized buzzwords of the left in order to delegitimize Trump's comments here. Yet, I don't know why he used the word, it's misogynistic there. I don't think he had any comment about women, which is, frankly, it's just not true. This is
he's just pushing that same sort of narrative as they always do, as you said there, with regard to him. But one thing I say about makes a good leader, and actually a good leader can always take accountability, can always reflect. Instead of deflecting criticism, you should always look internally. It's not just Donald Trump who said this. It's a majority of the British political space. It's a majority of the people that believe he is a bad leader. And if I had that many people doing that, and of course you can't take criticism from absolutely everybody, but there's certainly people that are out there that do have a voice and their opinion does weigh a lot. You've got to be able to take accountability, and you've got to go, well, why are people saying this? Instead of the stupid bullshit that he always does about him being Muslim. No one gives a fuck that he's Muslim. No one cares that he's fucking this. Yes, sometimes his agendas and his priorities come into play due to him being Muslim, but it's not just primarily because he's a Muslim mayor. It's absolutely nothing to do with that. It's his work that he's done in the city that warrants that kind of criticism.
Exactly. You can just look at the statistics, and regardless of your sort of ethnic background or religious beliefs, he is a terrible mayor on all fronts. In every single metric that you can measure, everything's got progressively worse under his leadership, and that's not a coincidence. Yet, he uses these like strawman arguments, and really it takes the power out of them words. The more you use them words, the less they really mean, right?
Exactly.
The more, if I were to be called racist, it doesn't really mean anything. It honestly brushes off of me like water on a duck's back. It means absolutely nothing today. Because, they've absolutely overprescribed this word to include pretty much everybody on the right. This goes into the fact that they labelled the Unite the Kingdom protest as fascist movements and far right. How can the biggest protest in the country from all different political and ethnic backgrounds attending it, how can they all be far right? So it just goes into that saying, it really does delegitimize that word.
No, yeah, facts. And to blow his argument out of the water, a guy that's under more criticism than him is a white male, Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer is a bad leader, and he is white. He's Christian for all I know, and he's a male. So it blows his argument out the water. If you're shit at your job, you're going to be under scrutiny, and you're going to be under criticism. And Keir Starmer is literally living proof in real time of him getting the same sort of abuse as Sadiq Khan. It has nothing to do with the skin colour and has nothing to do with his religion.
Exactly. I will make a slight point there, which I will dig into on a different episode, but his wife is of Israeli descent and also worked for a spy firm for Israel. But again, that's besides the point. He is Christian by all metrics. And yeah, you're right. It doesn't change the fact that he's a terrible mayor just because he's brown. He shouldn't get these like cookie points or brownie points, for lack of a better word. So I didn't even mean to make that pun. But yeah, you shouldn't get these brownie points just because he's of a sort of protected, as they say, protected ethnic class or diversity.
The majority of the world, for God's sake.
I know.
Jesus. Being white, 7% is 7% of the world.
and they claim they're a minority.
We're a protected class. We're the minority. Yeah, we're the minority. Jesus God, protected species, for God's sake.
I know, right?
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, he's not like a fucking, rare chameleon in the wild, These people aren't protected. And you're absolutely correct in saying that, that in terms of the world population, we are only 7%. We're a minority. At the turn of the last century, or the century before that, 1900, whites made up 38% of the population. Now we're only 7%. It's a clear, issue here, and if we don't have our own control of our own homelands to sort of push our will onto our own countries, then we have nowhere to go.
Facts. Okay, carrying on with this sort of UN thing, of course, he came out and kind of issued a warning to Starmer as well. And this is with regard to oil. So a different sort of subject away from immigration. But of course, talking about, he pushed this and said that the climate change is a bogus. He went in on the UN at this speech as well. But I just want to get up this clip where he speaks about the UK and our oil reserves. I know you speak very passionately about it as well. Have a little watch of this quickly.
They've given up their powerful edge, a lot of the countries that we're talking about in oil and gas, such as essentially closing the great North Sea oil. Oh, the North Sea, I know it so well. Aberdeen was the oil capital of Europe, and there's tremendous oil that hasn't been found in the North Sea. Tremendous oil. And I was with the Prime Minister I respect and like a lot, and I said, you're sitting with the greatest asset. They essentially closed it by making it so highly taxed that no developer, no oil company can go there. They have tremendous oil left, and more importantly, they have tremendous oil that hasn't even been found yet. And what a tremendous asset for the United Kingdom. And I hope the Prime Minister is listening, because I told it to him 3 days in a row. That's all he heard. North Sea oil, North Sea, because I want to see them do well. I want to stop seeing them ruining that beautiful Scottish and English countryside with windmills and massive solar panels that go 7 miles by 7 miles, taking away farmland. But we're not letting this happen in America. In 1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible, as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are.
There you go.
Yeah, he's absolutely spot on there. So I will just give a little bit of a rundown of what the situation is in the North Sea oil. So basically, the UK has about 20.8 billion barrels of oil reserve equivalent in the North Sea that has either been prospected, so they know it's there, or has been confirmed as a lead, so it's ready to go. Excuse me. Right now, the UK uses about 1.2 million barrels, or so 1.3 million barrels of oil per day, and we mine or we extract from the North Sea about 800,000 barrels of oil per day, which means we have to import about 500,000 barrels of oil a day. Now, if you were to use the oil fields we have available to 100% use the needs or sort of fulfill the needs of the UK, we could be energy independent for the next 100 years. Now, I've done the calculations, that is 100% facts, and Trump has even said that as well. They've got a century of oil available to them. So it just begs the question, why are we not utilizing our own resources, just like America is, just like Saudi Arabia is, just like Norway is? We have to import oil, which is transported by diesel container ships, which is massive CO2 emission. Imported oil nearly has a 40% higher carbon footprint than oil that is mined in the North Sea. And regarding the tax comment that he made, North Sea oil has a 78% tax on it. 78% tax on profits, which is unbelievable. That's due to a fuel levy that came in 2022, which added another 38% on top. and also just the staggering amount of tax. So these North Sea oil companies, they are not mining this oil because they know that they can just sit on the oil, wait for the tax levy to end in 2030, and then they can just start drilling these oil fields in 2030 and using the oil at higher profits and selling it at higher profits. So really, it's an artificial squeeze of energy prices. They're keeping energy prices high on purpose due to this tax. And I think it's just absolutely ridiculous how we've got into this situation where we can't even be energy independent. And he's absolutely correct in terms of the solar panel comment he made as well. Why the hell are we prioritising solar panels in the UK? It's ridiculous. We don't get any sun here. Like, we get no sun.
Yeah, true.
We're in darkness half the year. The other half the year is okay, but, you know, it just begs the question, you know, what's the point in doing it when we get no sun? It's cloudy most of the year, 80% of the year. You know, it just begs the question. It's insanity, and it's led by this green globalist agenda, which is really pushed by Ed Miliband. He's a sort of...
Yeah, well,
Go on.
they're obsessed with going to sort of net zero, but Donald Trump does speak about it really, really passionately all the time with regard to the North Sea oil. He loves Aberdeen, doesn't he?
He does.
And he loves the North Sea, and he does have our best interests at heart. He doesn't need to keep talking about this, really. He's just urging all the time. And as you heard there, for 3 days, he was like, North Sea oil, North Sea oil, North Sea oil. And I wonder, I would like to have been a sort of fly in that room and hear Keir Starmer's response. Yeah, like kind of not giving him anything back. That's why I had to mention it about 3 or 4 times every single day, because he probably didn't give an answer. And it was like, well, I've got part of a plan. I've got my money in net zero. You know, I'm playing with this sort of push for our country. That's affecting us as a nation, and it's affecting us as people who live there to pay extremely high energy prices. I think actually, at the last time I checked, we have the highest in the whole of Europe.
That is correct, yeah, and that is absolutely intentional. You know,
and it's self-inflicted.
100%.
Not by the people, but by the leaders in charge.
Yeah, and remember, Trump is of Scottish descent. You know, his mother is Scottish. So he holds, actually, I think he holds a dual nationality with the UK as well, which is why he's so passionate about these issues. And we need someone like this to be sort of, you know, fighting our case here. You know, we could be energy independent like this probably within a year. And we would probably see energy prices come down, you know, 50, 60, 70%, as Trump has mentioned on Air Force One the last time he met with Keir Starmer. You know, it's completely intentional. And what I will say to this, Dan, is that one of the reasons why you're not seeing energy prices come down is because wind farms have these things called contracts for difference. So essentially what that means is when the wind farm gets created, they lock in a price to sell energy to the government. Excuse me. So one thing I will say here, Dan, is that wind farms use these contracts called contracts for difference, which means they lock in energy prices for the next 10, 15 years. So they're locking in energy prices at extremely high prices. Now, if we were to tank energy prices at the wholesale level, what that means is that the wind farms would basically get subsidized by the government to fulfill the difference of the energy prices. So they will always be able to sell energy prices at the current level, which is super high. So the government doesn't have any incentive to drop energy prices, because that means they will have to pay these wind farms the tunes of billions and billions of pounds per year in order to make sure they have these contracts for difference. And none of these wind farms are profitable. You know, they take up massive amounts of oil in lubrication. So they're not clean energy. They have massive waste, they have a lifeline. Recycling these massive wind farms is also a massive environmental disaster as well. And the whole thing is really just a sort of green energy net zero scam. And the veil is being unlifted. You know, light is being shone on this dark part of our energy sector. You know, I'm not saying that we should be 100% dependent on, you know, fossil fuel as energy generation for this country, because I do believe, you know, there is future in nuclear power, and also there is future in solar, maybe not in the UK, but abroad there is massive sort of future there. But, you know, to fulfill the energy needs of this country and to bring down the costs, we need to be utilizing the resources we have available as a nation. And that is exactly not what we're doing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you know quite a lot about that. You and Trump could have a really good conversation about that. I mean, that's the knowledge that Trump knows, and that's why he speaks so passionately about it. And it's almost treasonous, isn't it?
It is, and you're right. Trump is obviously of the drill baby drill notion. He's really unleashed American energy and brought down energy prices in the US, and he knows how to do this. I don't know why we wouldn't do this for the United Kingdom, which obviously he holds so close to his heart. So it is treasonous because they are artificially inflating energy prices for the British public.
Facts. Keeping on the subject of Donald Trump, and we're starting to see, I think about 6 days ago, the White House, or Donald Trump came out and said, "I'm pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I am designating Antifa as a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention on this matter." And of course, he did then, yesterday, I think the order came into place, designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. And I'll bring up the White House document there, but it's official now, and that has now been signed. Now, Antifa have not taken to this kindly whatsoever, and of course there has been a crackdown, but they were doing a protest. I've got a video labeled there as Antifa. Let's just watch this video to see their reaction outside one of the ICE buildings before we go and watch a bit of a crackdown of Antifa as well. Have a watch of this.
Fucking be here with your fucking iPhone.
So that's of the protest, and now this is of the crackdown here as well, of the establishment rounding him up.
I'm going to YouTube now!
So yeah, just before I get your thoughts on firstly, Antifa being prescribed as a terrorist organisation and the sort of crackdown that we're starting to see of them, why are they all built like that? Why are they built like meatballs? And why are they small, fat, ugly women? Why is that what Antifa are all about? They're dressed as if they're like some special forces unit,
I know, right? They come out in helmets and goggles, umbrellas, they really think they're on the right side of history here, which just bewilders me. And they're all masks as well.
Well, what do you make of Trump actually prescribing them as a terror organisation now, as a domestic terror organisation?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have to look at the wider context behind sort of the history of Antifa here. Now we can go back all the way to sort of 2020 with the BLM riots, which was mainly, massive violence and property damage across the United States. We're talking nearly upwards of $2 billion of damage. And really, since then, they've been at the forefront of like this sort of political violence in the US. Really, we saw with Elon Musk's Doge and his initiative to cut government fraud, waste, and abuse, the backlash that he had from Antifa in terms of car dealerships being burnt, Teslas being vandalized across the country. They really are the main political violence group within the US. And I think it's a right designation. You cannot respond to political violence, to political opinions with violence. And also, this comes at in the wake of the Charlie Kirk assassination. This assassin is Tyler Robinson, I think his name is. Mm-hmm. So obviously he was part of a lot of these left, LGBTQ groups. And also sort of left political groups as well. And obviously assassinating one of the key speakers on the right, the most sort of moderate right person that really was in the US space. But a lot of people said he was a future president as well. This is how the left responds politically, that they would rather choose violence over political discourse because they understand that their arguments have fallacies and have flaws in them. And the only way they will elicit response is through political violence. So, yeah, I fully agree with it. It's sort of similar on the line of, labelling the Palestine Action in the UK as a terrorist organisation. I wholeheartedly do agree with it. I'd like to see, obviously, what would happen in the future.
Yeah, well, for far too long, and I said it after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, left-wing terrorism was something that the establishment has been ignoring for far too long. So to see something, I suppose, good come out of this, and Donald Trump actually taking action on these sort of radical groups, because we know how evil and violent they actually are, is a very, very good thing. And I'm probably going to see some more groups following Antifa that are going to be falling under that sort of demographic a little bit later on as well, and come under that label also. I'm good to see, and it's great to see them, of course, already cracking down on these Antifa thugs. Now, keeping on Trump again, so this episode is quite Donald Trump heavy, but of course, the Ukraine and Russia, something that has been going on for a little while, and it's almost like Donald Trump has kind of changed his standpoint on a few things. He put out this post a few hours ago and said, after getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and its financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where the war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years at war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it's very much making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all of the great cities, towns and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through their long lines that are being formed, and all of the other things that are taking place in their war economy, when most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better, Ukraine would be able to take their country back in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want to do with them. Good luck to all. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. This is the first time I almost feel that Trump has came out really getting behind for Ukraine, sort of publicly. He's kind of been playing sort of both sides, not playing both sides, but you know what he's been trying to do. His remit has been to try and stop the war. He's tried to sort of, bring Putin on side, but now he's almost like, no, I'm standing with Ukraine here.
Yeah, it is weird to see this sort of change in tune from Trump. Before his election, he campaigned on the fact that he could solve this war within 24 hours. That's clearly not been the case, obviously being sort of 7-8 months into his presidency. It's just interesting to see this in the context of him meeting Putin recently. He came out of that meeting in Alaska with a no deal. And then not long after that, Putin was seen, parading with the leader of China. Is it? I forgot his name, Xi Jinping or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a leader of China, and he's obviously in cahoots with all these Asian countries as well. I think obviously the alliance here has been or the sort of relationship between Trump and Putin has been muddied, and he's clearly now picking sides. He's now funding or wanting to fund Zelensky to the tune of probably more billions of dollars. Now, it was weird to see this obviously after the public grilling that JD Vance and Trump gave Zelensky during their meeting, where they said, you're going to have to give parts up, basically. You do not have the capacity to win because we will not fund you anymore. So it's interesting. I'm interested to see if there's been any sort of political lobbying in this space. We know how the military-industrial complex works in this area. They obviously want the war to continue because the US buys the military equipment from people like Raytheon, Skunk Works, and all these other sort of military contractors, Martin Group, things like that. And we know for a fact that these big corporations, military corporations, do lobby politicians in order to carry on wars so they can make more profits. Again, that's all alleged. I'm not saying that's the case here. That's not what happened. But it would be interesting to see, obviously, the fallout of this. Now, is he? He mentioned NATO and Europe quite a lot there. Obviously, he wants Europe to increase their spending, but NATO is an interesting sort of vocabulary to use there. Is he suggesting that he wants NATO intervention in this war?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're reading between the lines there, I suppose it looks like that for sure. But then again, I don't know. Is there going to be another sort of twist or turn that we're going to see come out of this sort of war? I don't know. You make a really good point there.
Yeah, it might just be a threat. It might because
a threat. I think so. I think he's playing chess. I really do think when Trump does stuff and says things publicly, it's all a part of the bigger picture. And this is probably to put a bit more pressure onto Russia now. So it's looking like they've had these meetings in person. We had this sort of no deal, and Trump's obviously pushing for something and this peace deal. And now he's looking like the next card that he's putting down as such, or the next move on the chessboard. He's looking and publicly supporting Ukraine and maybe flexing the United States' muscles a little bit behind them. Not completely directly, but sitting there a little bit and going, we're here. And then, of course, backing Ukraine to then, who knows, go and take more land from Russia. So I think it's just, another tactical move in trying to get Putin back there and get a deal complete.
Absolutely. But remember, he's playing with a lot of these European lives here. If he's threatening NATO intervention in the Ukraine-Russia war, remember, that means that the United Kingdom would get involved in that war as well. And I do think that obviously if we get involved, well, who's going to get involved on the other side? It's going to be China. It's going to be North Korea. It's going to be Russia's allies that we will be fighting as well. Escalation is something I do not want to see. They need to solve this issue, before it gets escalated. I don't think Putin is playing ball with Trump. Now, obviously, that is.
Sorry, go on.
No, after you.
Well, because just over the last couple of hours, the Ukrainian president Zelensky told Fox News that he's prepared for a personal meeting with Vladimir Putin, even on neutral territory such as Kazakhstan. Our teams, Trump's teams, Europeans, including Macron and other leaders, and President Aragon, I know he was in Europe. We all suggested meetings in Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, in Europe, and neutral countries like Austria or Switzerland. We even said if you want somewhere like Kazakhstan, we are ready. However, he stressed that Russia refuses such a meeting because they want to keep on fighting. So that came from Zelensky's mouth. So that's what I feel that they're going to that sort of level. They're still trying to push for Putin to come to the table. That's still the sort of remit of Trump. That's still the remit of Europe and Ukraine, that they of course want some sort of peace deal to come to fruition. But as you said earlier on, it looks like Putin isn't currently playing ball.
Yeah, and you know, the reason why Zelensky wants that is because he's clearly losing the war. You know, it's interesting to see the sort of vocabulary that Donald used in that post on Truth Social as well. You know, saying that, you know, the borders pre-war could be, you know, retrieved back for Ukraine. That's going to take a lot of will and a lot of manpower and fighting power in order to achieve that. And remember, the Donbass region, the sort of the north and the sort of eastern side of Ukraine, is primarily of Russian descent. And so really, Russia were wanting to liberate them people who were technically under the Ukraine's control. And remember, even the context of Ukraine in 2014, where there was a coup that was funded by Western, Western guns and Western allies in order to overthrow the democratically elected government of Ukraine, which was pro-Russia. So, you know, the context is very interesting here. Obviously, Russia thinks they're the good guys in this situation. Ukraine thinks they are the victim and they require help. And I don't think this would have happened if the meeting with Putin went well, but it clearly didn't. So this is Trump's response. He's like, okay, if you're not going to play ball, we're not going to play ball. Fuck it, we'll just restore back the, the original lines. But again, that's going to require massive military intervention, and it has to be from NATO and from American forces as well.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the next twist in this tale is going to be, of course, in this war. But there seems to be developments coming out every sort of hour. And the latest with that, at the time of recording, is Zelensky, of course, has said that he wants to meet Putin on neutral territory, but currently not playing ball. And we've seen Donald Trump speak about that. Dom, want to move back to the United Kingdom a little bit, and I want to show you some clips, actually. I've seen this happen quite a lot on UK streets with regard to sort of migrants, whether they are illegal or just people that are not culturally aligned to us here in the UK. I've got some shocking footage, actually, to show with you. I've got two videos, in fact, but this one has just came out today, of a mother and daughter being approached by a migrant man, and this migrant man, he looks like of African descent, is asking the mother for the daughter to give him a kiss. Yeah, it's absolutely shocking. Let's have a little watch of this one. I'm just trying to get the video footage up for you. It's called Under African Migrant 1, African Migrant. Here you go.
Guck mal, ich bin hier mit meinen Kindern und spazieren und ich werde einfach die ganze Zeit verfolgt von so einem Mann. Der ruft mich die ganze Zeit. So gruselig.
Entschuldigung, warten Sie mal kurz. Hallo. Ich wohne auch hier. Sind Sie hier neu in der Gegend?
Ja.
Sie wunderschön, Sie sehr, sehr schön.
Okay.
Sie wunderschön.
Dankeschön. Ich bin aber gerade am Spazieren mit meinen Kindern. Ich habe einen Mann. Wir würden hier auch gerne weiter spazieren.
Ich habe Sie gesehen von hinten.
Habe ich gemerkt.
Moment. Ich habe Sie gesehen von hinten. Sie boom hinten.
Okay. Habe ich gesehen. Was will ich denn?
Ich habe gesehen von hinten. Sie haben boom von hinten.
Okay, aber ich habe auch einen Mann.
Sie sehr schön.
Dankeschön.
Sie haben Mann? Sie haben Mann?
Ja, ich habe einen Mann.
Egal, Mann muss nicht wissen, ein Date haben.
Nein, danke.
Bleiben Sie stehen kurz.
Ich bin mit meinen Kindern.
Ich nur mit Ihnen rede, kurz wollen ein Date mit
Nein,
Ihnen,
ich
bitte.
möchte kein Date, dankeschön. Ich würde mich auch freuen, wenn Sie mich jetzt in Ruhe lassen.
Aber Sie magnifik, Sie sehr schöne Augen, schöne Nase und hinten bumm, ich habe gesehen, ich muss reden mit dieser
Können Sie
Frau.
bitte gehen?
Bitte.
Können Sie bitte einfach gehen und mich in Ruhe lassen? Dankeschön.
Aber ein Kuss bitte.
Bitte.
So that was from Germany, that in particular incident. However, I've got another incident, of course, from the UK, of some CCTV footage. But yeah, I mean, this is, again, it just looks like European women just aren't safe at all. But have a look at this clip here in part 2 from surveillance footage, and the police do show up, but this is actually in the UK. This man coming out of the play zone, where a woman has to defend her children. Have a watch of this one.
okay? Fine?
No, get in.
You okay?
Please, what? Get in! Move? What are you doing? Don't even bother. Move. Don't get loose. I've got kids in here, don't.
Huh?
I've got kids.
You have to do?
I've got children in here. Can you go away, please?
What the fuck
What
are
you
you
do?
scared?
I've got cameras.
Good. Get it.
Hi.
No. Yeah. Can you all just go on the side whilst we deal with him and then we'll come and speak to you in a sec, alright? Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. Just give us two, just go, close the door, give us 2 minutes. Nothing to do with you, rather. There's nothing to do with you, rather.
So yeah, thoughts on that one? That's pretty scary, is it?
Yeah, pretty scary. I mean, the first one obviously was pretty shocking, you know, seeing the mother or the daughter from behind and clearly being sort of sexually motivated there. And the second one, yeah, you know, he was inside of the playpen outside of this mother's house when she was home alone with children. You know, these people have no conscience. They have no ability to understand that that is not the right thing to do in this scenario. Like, it's just disgusting. And, you know, these are only just some of the things that we're seeing. You know, I guarantee you this is happening on a daily basis across the country and just isn't being reported. You know, the UK citizens have a right to feel safe in their homeland, and these people directly threaten that right with their presence because they're clearly not conscious, they're not motivated, they're not clearly, you know, the guys, it's just middle of the day on a work day. The husband is out working probably, and you know, what is he doing? You know, he's clearly not working. How can these people say that these are productive members of society and you know, that they're beneficial to the wider good of society when all they're doing is, you know, scrounging around and you know, scaring mothers and children?
Well, we've seen that, and we've seen the police response last time with the lady, that blind lady in Canary Wharf, where one guy just walked into the house, and there was a blind lady that was there, and if it wasn't for her daughter for being there, then something crazy could have happened. But the police response was, well, we can't arrest him because it's not illegal to just go inside someone's house. So in that in particular instance, the guy coming out the playpen, this is not necessarily an arrestable offence. So he's essentially allowed to just walk into their house. That guy is just allowed to hang out in their playpen in their front garden and then loiter around her front of her house.
Yeah, it's vile. They don't have any conscience there when it comes to how this makes other people feel. I don't even know if they understand that that is a thing, that other people can feel scared. They're probably not sort of smart enough nor have the brain capacity to do so. But how many assaults, how many rapes, how many young women, young mothers are going to feel scared, are going to be sexually assaulted before this becomes a bigger issue. This is already a big issue in my eyes, and these videos do prove that this is happening, and that mothers across the country are scared to leave their houses because of men like this. It just goes back to the point, we want to see these people arrested and deported. They cannot be allowed to roam free in society.
Well, this is the situation where they are allowed to roam free in society. Of course, that individual that sort of sparked the Epping Hotel protests. This week he was given a 12-month sentence. Of course, the Ethiopian man who sexually assaulted a child and then sexually assaulted a woman, and then of course was given just 12 months. So he was given his verdict of guilty, but his sentence was given this last couple of days. And I'm just getting an update now as we're live on this podcast, is that the Home Office will now seek to deport the asylum seeker after his 12-month sentence. So that's a step in the right direction, but why does it need to get to this stage where a young girl, a 14-year-old girl, has been sexually assaulted, a woman has been sexually assaulted before the authorities take action? And we can talk about the sentence in general, as we always say. I always draw a sort of precedent with what Lucy Connolly got, 31-month sentence for hurting words on Twitter, and an individual who does 2 sexual assaults, one of those being on a child, only gets 12 months. And then, of course, the Home Office looking to deport him, but that's not been confirmed, really, because, well, he's got 12 months to conjure up a plan and try and play the violin, whether that's going to be him being an alcoholic, whether that's going to be him being gay, or whatever it may be. We'll see what the woke human rights lawyers come up with over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think obviously he has a lot of time to plan that, and obviously the NGOs, these activist judges and lawyers are going to be working his case to ensure that he stays in the UK for no benefit of anyone other than the sort of globalist agenda here. But, how can Lucy Connolly get 31 months for bad words on the internet that she deleted and she apologised for? Yeah, this man gets 12. And bearing in mind, he's probably only going to serve 40% of that, which would equate to about 4 or 5 months in jail under the sort of legislation in the UK right now. He has to be deported because, again, there's going to be public outcry. There was already protests in Epping outside of the Bell Hotel only the other night, actually, where we saw a few people get arrested, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
But, the hotel is still active. There are still people in that hotel that are allowed to roam free. It's just insanity, Dan. It really is insanity, and it boils my blood.
But we're seeing these two-tier sentences across the board, not just for sort of migrants, but of course that individual. So if you're an Islamist who carries out a knife attack, then you're going to get let off without a prison sentence. Do you remember the situation of the guy that was protesting outside an embassy? He essentially burned a Quran. Obviously there's no blasphemy laws within the UK, but he was arrested under aggravating hate or something like that. But the most shocking part of that incident was a guy who came out with a knife in London and tried to attack him. His verdict just came out and said that he's not going to be getting any prison time whatsoever.
Two-tier Keir, Dan. That's what that is. And you're right, it is not illegal to burn the Quran.
Nor is a flag, nor is it for the Bible.
Exactly. There might be some laws about, starting fires in public or something like that. But again, burning the Quran specifically is not an illegal activity. Yeah, I'm pretty sure attacking someone with a knife is.
It's just, that's just the way it goes. So that individual's not got prison time, despite being caught on camera, lunging at an individual with a knife in broad daylight. he's not going to be getting any prison sentence. So when people sort of say, oh, there is no two-tier justice in this country, it's clear as day that there is, because there's so much evidence for it, which is shocking. And I've got another story for you that came out over the last sort of 12 hours. And that there was an arrest after, I don't know if you've seen the video footage, at a college in Warwickshire. Essentially, a 17-year-old boy has now been arrested on possession of an offensive weapon at his home after video surfaced from Royal Leamington College of an individual bringing out a machete and attacking students with it. Wild stuff. Let me try and get this video up for you so we can have a little watch. It's under Machete School. Let's have a watch of this quickly. This was yesterday.
Yo, Kurt! Yo, actually, this Kurt! I cut, bro. I'm saying witness. Are we witnessing? I'm for that. Ethically together. Shit. Oh, shit. Yeah. Alright, fuck.
So after this, the college was of course put into lockdown, and then 2 other boys were arrested on suspicion of violent disorder following the incident while police were at the scene. Armed police, of course, arrived at the college where the 17-year-old suspect was detained at his home, and police said this was clearly a terrifying incident for everyone concerned, and I would like to reassure people that we have taken prompt action to detain a suspect. The force has initially reported to reports of a male with a weapon, and the chief inspector said that there were 2 further arrests followed a fight that had broken out while police were at the scene. So yeah, what do you make of that? Of course, this knife crime going into schools and 17-year-olds bringing out machetes in a disagreement. I don't know if that was what it was like when you were at school, but that was the case when you had a fight?
Funny enough, Dan, we didn't really bring machetes into school.
I mean, it's not even a penknife, and it's not. I wouldn't condone anyone bringing a knife into school. The guy had a 2-foot machete pulling out of his leg, out of his tracksuit bottom trousers.
He unsheathed it from his waist like a fucking medieval sword.
Mental, huh? What do you make of that?
It's crazy, right? And I hate to say it, Dan, but it's like the usual suspects. Why it's London, or is it London?
Nah, that's Warwickshire. We're going to get to an incident this morning from London in a minute as well. But yeah, it was from Warwickshire.
Yep. Well, what I don't know what situation would warrant bringing in a zombie knife, a 2-foot machete, and swinging it round like a retard. It just doesn't make any sense. But back in my day, if we had disagreements, especially in college or in high school, you would fight. I'm not condoning fighting, but there is a certain level of honour when it comes to disagreements you have with someone. Okay, right, let's just settle it. And that did happen throughout my college a lot. But bringing a knife, I don't think is very fair. And I'm not condoning any sort of violence at all, nor fists, nor knives, etc. But I think bringing in a knife is a little bit too far-fetched and obviously endangers everyone. But the guy's not a genius. He's already been arrested for it, and 2 other people as well. I don't think he's going to go very far in this life.
But yeah, I mean, it's a proper epidemic that we're seeing within this country, and the people that are holding weapons are getting younger and younger. This next clip is under Night Fight, is some footage this morning from London. Have a watch of this.
Oi, what the fuck? He just hit the car. He literally just hit the car. Oh my god. Oh no. My god. Leave. No, I don't like seeing this. Oh my god. Bless him. No. Oh my god. Georgina. Live, he's getting stabbed up. Are you what? Oi. Ah! Live! What the fuck?
There you go. As I said, a certain demographic, usual suspects, as you say as well. But that's Sadiq Khan's London for you. And that's the utter state of the UK. There is an epidemic within this country with regard to knife crime. It's something that's not getting better, it's only getting worse. And as I said, the victims and the perpetrators are getting younger and younger.
Yeah, and it's being normalised. You know, there have been hundreds of videos I've seen out of London in terms of knife crime, knife fights, people getting stabbed and slashed. Yeah, it's absolutely awful. What is causing this sort of social degradation? Well, I think it's a demographic. You know, I really do hate to say it, but it's not like you're seeing native British people get involved in these sort of knife crimes.
No.
You know, obviously that does happen, but it's all about per capita. It's about the rate it's happening. And remember, you know, the African community in the UK is a very small percentage, but it's a very big percentage of London and certain areas. And you know, these gang wars are just being fueled by this like sort of a drill rap economy as well, where they're sort of promoting this stuff through their music and sort of glorifying these types of heinous crimes. I just don't think it's going to get better unless you really militarize the sort of mobilize the military and make sure that this can't happen. You know, look at what Trump did in DC. You know, there was violent crime, there was carjackings, there was robberies, there was gun crime. He mobilized the National Guard around DC and basically cleaned up the streets within a week. Why can't we do that with London? This is what Ant Middleton has said he wants to do as well. I don't think necessarily mobilise the military is what he said, but he definitely wants to increase police presence around this area and make sure that, you know, that they can prevent these crimes from happening rather than just treating the wounds after it's happened.
Well, actually, I watched a recent podcast with Ant Middleton in it. He said he wants special forces to run London, essentially. So, yeah,
well,
essentially militarising it in a way. But something needs to happen and something needs to change very, very drastically and very quickly. Because the sort of mantra that we're getting from Sadiq Khan, the sort of stuff that he's peddling, London's been the safest it's ever been. He put a post up on X literally the other day stating that.
Speechless, Dan. Speechless. How can he say these things? He is lying to our faces. He is literally making up statistics. And his arguments are completely full of fallacies. He lives in this delusion, you know, that diversity is a strength of this nation.
Facts.
That's absolutely unequivocally wrong. Diversity is hindering the progression of this nation. And the crime statistics prove that as well.
Moving on to for crime that's of course is being ignored, but crime that's again massively enforced by UK police, and we're moving on to Katie Hopkins. She's came out and stated that she was arrested for what she said online. Now, I reported this story yesterday on my main channel. However, there was a lot of questions being asked. They were saying, well, what was she actually arrested for? Well, we've got a major update from Katie herself on what it was for and why she could be facing prison. She was arrested and then may face is facing charges and may face prison time for what she said online. I've got a video here of Katie Arrest 1. Let's have a little watch of this where she came out and spoke about it first, and then we'll get to her update a little bit later on. But this is the first bit she said.
What my comedy shows do, they allow people to laugh at the things you're not allowed to say, because I can just about get away with saying them now in the guise of comedy. And it's a fine line. I was arrested and interviewed under caution. I haven't spoken about this yet, about 3 weeks ago. And I'm waiting to be charged for the crime of online communications, crime of speech. For my Katie's, I do a pub night online called the Katie's Arms.
I love the Katie's Arms.
So I've been arrested for that.
I see.
Because of what I said on my Katie's Arms pub.
You know, when you talk about that, the role of a comedian, it reminds me of the role of a journalist. Because when I was growing up as a journalist, you know, we didn't expect to be liked by the government, and we always got complaints from the audience. And you were sort of, and the mantra was, if you're hated by everybody, you're doing something right. You know, if everybody's unhappy with you. And then suddenly...
So that was that. I mean, she didn't say what the in particular thing that she said was there, but she did release a video of her outside the station awaiting the charges. Let's have a little watch of that first. Then we'll go into the reason why she was arrested.
And I, Katie Hopkins, state as follows. I have attended this interview under protest as I was threatened with arrest if I did not attend. I consider this interview and the police investigation to be an unlawful interference with my right to freedom of expression pursuant to Article 10 ECHR Human Rights Act 1998. I reserve my position in respect of any actions I choose to take, including but not limited to a formal complaint and claim for damages against Devon and Cornwall Police. I run a comedy pub night called the Katie's Arms, live on my Instagram at 8 p.m. on Fridays for 30 minutes. I started the Katie's Arms during the idiocy of COVID lockdowns in order to help people struggling with their mental health. The Katie's Arms is now an international community of people wanting others to live their best life, laughing with me and at me. My audience choose to join me on my Instagram channel live. If anyone was offended, that is their choice. I do not republish or upload this content. It is ridiculous that my comedic speech is subject to a criminal investigation, and as such, my presence here is ridiculous. I will not answer any questions. And that was my statement to Devon.
So that was that, and now you probably want to know why the in particular thing, what she was arrested for. If you go to the next video, she literally explains it here.
Fucking get back here, you cripple spastic. I'm a proper spaz. And actually, it's the last thing I got hauled into the police station for in the UK, just before I got here. I was told I would either be arrested or I had to turn up for interview under caution, was because on my Katie's Arms, my pub, where I just, let rip, whatever, I called myself a spaz. And I got arrested, effectively, by British police because that's offensive.
Jesus.
It's demonic.
Place. Yeah, I'm waiting to find out if I'm going to be charged against the Online Communications Act for calling myself a spaz.
I'm so terrified of going to the UK.
So I mean, we've seen a lot of things that you can get arrested for saying things online and all of these kind of things. But of course, the news came out a couple of days ago that she had been arrested and is awaiting charge and could face prison time. But that was the reason, because she called herself a spaz.
So self-deprecating humour is now illegal
essentially
in the UK in 2025. So you're not even allowed to be mean to yourself, Dan.
Nope.
You are not allowed to be mean to yourself. It's unbelievable. And who would be the recipient of that harm, though? Like, that makes no sense. Calling yourself a word, there is no victim in that. There is no, receiver of the insult. It's simply just self-deprecating humour. And yeah, this is the sort of Orwellian life we live now in 2025 in the UK. And this really goes back to something I've mentioned on previous podcasts. It's Section 179 of the Online Safety Act. Excuse me. So this goes back to really what I've talked about previously on this podcast, which is the Section 179 of the Online Safety Act, which states that causing non-trivial psychological harm or intend to cause psychological harm is now illegal. So if you simply just say something that Ofcom deems to be intended to cause harm, that is now illegal. And clearly, no one needs to be the victim of this alleged harm. It is simply if they deem if you intended to cause harm. And yeah, we're now seeing comedians be prosecuted under this new legislation. Where do we go from here, Dan?
I don't know. We've seen it, of course, with the guy that wrote Father Ted, Graham Linehan, as well, who was sort of prosecuted, arrested under sort of comedic values as well, talking about sort of trans bathrooms or women's bathrooms, and we've seen the sort of response and the backlash from that. But, you know, I think with Katie in particular, she's one of those figures that the establishment dislikes. And we've seen time and time again, when the establishment doesn't like you, they'll do anything to sort of bring you down. And that certainly looks like the case here with Katie Hopkins, which is super unfortunate. Actually, I'm a fan of Katie Hopkins. I like what she says and I like what she does. And it's good to see, I suppose, the police do have the manpower and do have the willpower to go after people that commit crimes, but they're just focusing on the wrong area. If they put this much energy into stopping the knife epidemic, the stabbing epidemic within this country, then the place would be a little safer.
Yeah, they don't care the fact that you could potentially be slaughtered every time you go out into the public in London. But God forbid you call yourself a spastic. Honestly,
it's just the world that we live in, mate. It's just the world that we live in. I've shared quite a lot there, mate. I know you want to get onto the Google admitting a regard to censorship. Can you just give us a little bit of light onto that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as of recently, the House Judiciary, the GOP, has a big win for freedom. Now, the essence of this story is that Google has admitted censorship under Biden, and it also promises to end the bans of YouTube accounts for thousands of Americans censored for political speech. So in essence, the Biden administration pressured Google to censor Americans and remove content that did not violate YouTube policies. So was technically legal under their policies, but was pressured by the Biden administration in order to be removed from the platform. Now, I have gone through the full segment that was sent by the Judiciary House. So under Section 8, it said, senior Biden administration officials, including White House officials, conducted repeated and sustained outreach to Alphabet, which is the company that owns Google, and pressured the company regarding certain user-generated content related to the COVID-19 pandemic that did not violate its policies. Now, while the company continued to develop and enforce its policies independently, the Biden administration officials continued to press the company to remove non-violative user-generated content. Section 9. As online platforms, including Alphabet, grappled with these decisions, the administration's officials, including President Biden, created a political atmosphere that sought to influence the actions of platforms based on their concerns regarding misinformation. Section 10. It is unacceptable and wrong when a government, including the Biden administration, attempts to dictate how the company moderates content. And the company has consistently fought against those efforts on First Amendment grounds. In June 2023, YouTube sunsetted a policy to allow for discussion of possible widespread fraud, errors, or glitches occurring in the 2020 and past US presidential elections. So we are seeing unequivocally that the Biden administration censored COVID-19 discourse and election interference discourse. Now, me being me, that means that the COVID-19 pandemic was clearly sort of manufactured and political discourse was controlled for a reason, right? So this is not only talking about the origin of COVID, which we now know has been 100% confirmed to be from a lab in Wuhan, and was basically created using gain-of-function research, which is where you mutate viruses and then you continue to mutate viruses to make them more infectious, to make them more deadly, which is banned under law. But also the sort of medications that we use in order to treat COVID. Now, do you remember the sort of smear campaign against Trump that he was injecting bleach to solve the COVID-19? Well, that was a drug called ivermectin. Now, ivermectin has been around since the dawn of time. maybe 20, 30 years plus. And it showed massive positive results when treating COVID-19 patients with ivermectin in early stages. And you also had people like Robert Malone, who is the creator of the mRNA technology on which the vaccine was created upon. He came out publicly on Twitter stating that this is not a vaccine. He's the creator of the vaccine technology, saying this is not a vaccine, and he was banned from Twitter. So it just goes to show that the discourse around the COVID-19 was all manufactured. Political dissent was thwarted at every single step of the way, and they used this in order to implement emergency government responses in order to lock down freedoms. And we know this to be true now. Not only is speech and discourse was blocked and obviously thwarted, but also freedom of movement and also mandatory vaccine mandates for people in government positions as well. You know, people were being fired from their jobs for not taking the vaccine. I think that's absolutely disgusting. You know, it's so funny to see the left claim this like my body, my choice thing when it comes to abortion and pro-life and things like that. Yet, when it comes to a vaccine, you're not allowed to be my body, my choice. I think it's disgusting. And, you know, I like to see this shift. You know, we've seen it from Meta, we've seen it from Facebook being shifted. This was really started by Elon Musk buying X in 2022 and 2023. So we saw Meta sort of come to the right side of politics. Now we're seeing Google do the same thing, and they have sunsetted many policies around political discourse over these topics, specifically COVID-19 and obviously election interference on YouTube, which is great for us because now we can talk about it. And I will say right now that both of them things are a scam. The 2020 elections, you need to watch a documentary called 1000 Mules, which is absolutely incredible documentary, which basically proves that the Biden administration were putting in fake mail-in ballots in order to get President Biden elected. And it's just a known fact now that the 2020 election was stolen from President Trump. I am free to say that now that YouTube has sunsetted these policies. And as well with the COVID-19, the vaccines that were pushed on people, I have had personal friends that have been suffered with myocarditis after getting the vaccine. We do not know the cause or the sort of ramifications of the max vaccine rollout. You know, we saw massive amount of blood clots, unusual blood clots spike. We see massive amount of athletes dropping dead on the pitch. Babies with mutations and missing limbs, missing vital organs, etc. From mothers who got the vaccine. The sheath is being unveiled right now, and light is being shone on this dark part of human history. And let me tell you something: this will never happen again. But you know, I want to understand what your thoughts on this. Do you think this is obviously a good thing that YouTube has sort of come to realization that political pressure from the government is a bad thing?
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, it just goes to show what a massive bullet has been dodged, essentially, with regard to Trump being elected. Imagine if Kamala had been elected, the world that we'd be living in currently, it'd be a really, really dark place. And yeah, I mean, I think as well with you know, these like sort of right-wing conspiracy theories that people talk about all the time, it's looking abundantly clear with a few certain revelations over the last couple of years that these conspiracy theories that were put on quote unquote are actually coming true. So yeah, I mean, listen, it's an interesting world. I had a feeling that was happening anyway, but now that they were coming out here with the proof and just how dark and how controlling the Biden administration were is disgusting to see. But it also now brings us to a place where we can no longer go back, because they've admitted to that being the thing, censoring people. They've admitted to that. Now we can't go back, even if Trump is, of course, not in power. We can never go back now because they've already come clean. Meta came clean, now Google came clean as well. So, yeah, it's big. But it's also a big thing for freedom of speech, which was started and kick-started, I suppose, by Elon Musk, which is also glorious to see.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny to see, obviously, all these conspiracy theories come true. I used to talk to my friends about this. I was like, you know, I used to be a massive conspiracy theorist, but I'm not anymore because all the conspiracies came true, which is the case. You know, if you said in 2020 that the COVID-19 virus came from a lab in China, you would be called a conspiracy theorist. If you said that political dissent was being hindered or thwarted by big media and pressured by the government, you would be a conspiracy theorist. You know, we're talking about President Trump being removed from Twitter, removed from the biggest online platform for political discourse because of the alleged January 6th or the January 6th insurrection that they call it. Which again is a massive conspiracy. You know, there was apparently undercover ops and sort of agent provocateurs within the crowds that entered. The police did let them in, but that's besides the point. I don't agree with obviously taking over the sort of White House there, but you know, these conspiracies have come true now, and I don't know what. You're right, we can never go back from this because now it has been unearthed that this is true, this is reality. You know, they can't, if let's say for example Democrats get elected back into government in 2028, you know, they can't rechange their policies. They can't start this political pressurization from the government onto big media and big tech again, because you know, big tech will just come out and say, hey, this is what they're doing. You know? Yeah,
well, hopefully that hopefully that does set a precedent going forward, and I suppose credit to Google for coming clean in the end. And of course they said they're going to reinstate accounts that did get banned. I mean, people's livelihoods were lost as well, you know, people that are in our space actually as well, talking about politics, talking about things, lost their careers for nothing, which was also shocking to see really as well. Do you want to just talk about the RFK and Trump autism trial? And
yeah, sure. So RFK and Trump did a pretty big press conference on Monday, and it linked uses of paracetamol to autism, to increase rates of autism in their children. So the evidence suggests that paracetamol used in pregnant women, especially in late pregnancy, may cause long-term neurological effects in their children. Now, I've read a lot of the sort of abstracts related to these scientific discoveries, and the key part here is that it wasn't just one study. It was 46 studies. Of these, 27 studies reported positive associations, significant links to significant links to autism. 9 showed null associations, no significant links, and 4 indicated negative associations. But the key part here is the higher quality studies were more likely to show positive associations. Overall, the majority of the studies reported positive associations of prenatal paracetamol use with ADHD, ASD or NDD in offsprings, with risk of bias and strength of evidence rating informing the overall synthesis. So this is really huge. You know, the autism epidemic in the United States has been a massive issue. You know, you're seeing massive amounts of autism rates spike in recent years, and it's not necessarily due to the paracetamol itself. What it is due to is that paracetamol depletes glutathione. Sorry, I butchered that. Which essentially is a necessity for detox. Now, guys, I'm not a scientist, but I have done my best to read into this. So if babies are given paracetamol, they have a 3 times increased risk of autism per the Johns Hopkins study. And what that means is that the babies have a weakened immune system and they can't remove the heavy metals that are present in vaccines, things like aluminum, which then increases neurodivergent diseases, NDDs. So really this is a massive step in the right direction. But you know what's funny is I've literally been seeing videos of left pregnant women taking paracetamol to prove a point. So it's so funny to see this sort of switch, because in COVID, we saw a massive plea to authority, a plea to authority fallacy, that is. Whereas trust the science, trust the experts in the field. And yet, when President Trump and RFK come out unequivocally proving that paracetamol usage in pregnant women causes autism and neurodivergent diseases for their children, they will go, no, that's bullshit, let me take loads of paracetamol to prove a point. So it's a complete fallacy on their part, where they like the appeal to authority when it suits them, but when it doesn't suit them, or when it's from someone that they don't agree with, they will abstain from believing the science. It's so interesting to see that switch up, and it really just shows that their opinions are politically motivated and they are jumping on bandwagons that they see fit. And they don't also care about the health and well-being of their children, which is incredible. And autism was identified before paracetamol was created as a drug. That is an absolute fact. But the point is, it increases the rate of autism. It doesn't cause autism, it increases the rate. And that's the key difference here. And I really like what RFK is doing in the White House right now. I think he's the man for the job, winning billions already before he was even in White House, suing big pharmaceutical companies. So yeah, I would say, more power to him and his plight of fixing the broken health system and the broken sort of health of the American citizens.
Yeah, facts. That's good. No, I mean, it was an interesting study as well. I mean, I didn't get a chance to really fully dive into it as such, but you've certainly opened my eyes to a little bit there with regard to it. But it's certainly a huge revelation, and as you're saying there with the left, as I said, it's certainly agenda based. They they don't look at things based on facts. Is who it's coming from and what sort of narrative it's coming from. So Donald Trump could cure cancer essentially, and then all of a sudden, they wouldn't believe it because it's come from someone that they don't like. So it's always narrative and driven based on who's on their side and who's not on their side.
100%, and you have to remember the history of Robert Kennedy Jr. He was a Democrat. He was thwarted in the primaries in the 2024 election. He didn't even get a chance to run against Kamala. There was no primaries, and he had to move, or he was then pushed over, or he wanted to join Trump's campaign so he could have a difference. And then suddenly, because he switched sides, he's 100% wrong. It makes no sense. And if they actually understood the studies and the scope of the studies, 47 different studies they had, or 46, sorry. Of these, 27 studies reported positive associations. So if you look at the science, if you remove the political bias and just look at the science, then you have to come out with a conclusion that is paracetamol does increase rates of autism. And that is what these people are. They're seeing orange man bad. That's really all. They have Trump derangement syndrome. All these sort of left woke liberals. So yeah, it's really good to see obviously the movements within that space. And yeah, hopefully we can take some different sort of conclusions from that, and obviously maybe this can benefit the health of our citizens as well.
Yeah, no, facts. Bro, we've been going for quite a while. As I said, I'm probably going to be looking to there's probably going to be more longer episodes happening as we get on. But yeah, we're probably going to have to call it there, really, because it's been an hour and 40, mate. But have you got any sort of final words for yourself?
No, that's everything from me. I thought it was a really good episode. Thank you all for tuning in. If you want to follow me on X, the link will be down in the description below. And make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Guys, we're going to be uploading every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. And we will be back on schedule in a couple of weeks in terms of being in the studio. So thank you for bearing with us in terms of this sort of slightly chaotic period. But we're doing our best to make sure these episodes get pumped out every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So make sure to tune in.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Look after yourselves. Peace.